So just to go over the vision again for the SEND top-up tool, to simplify and unify the SEND top-up funding service across schools in Bristol by designing and building a reusable and accessible web-based application for SEND coordinators, administrators and reviewers. So that's the vision of the tool that we're building. So what have we achieved in sprints 11 and 12 since the last demo? So the main key points are done 3 user demos. Demonstrations were done for a big group of Senkos, about 30. And off the back of that, we've done more planning. Monica's been doing planning for one-to-one user testing sessions. There's been a blocker in that respect in terms of the Senkos getting access to the UAT environment. So that's really pushed our goal for sprints 12, which is to get something into a live production environment so that they can access it and start testing it in the real environment. The provision pages have gone live, so that's been a real bulk of the tickets in sprints 11 and 12. And the summary page updated with the ability to remove a selected provision. So before, and we'll demo it again, you could add a provision, but you couldn't remove it after you'd already added it. Included in the back end the mapping of the provisions data. So that's been a real big piece of work. The data itself is quite complex, and trying to map that's taken up a lot of the last few sprints. And the inclusion of removing the assessment ID. So before we were showing the assessment ID and we needed that removed because it didn't add any value, which is something that we realized. So also the ability to download PDF, that's been, again, a big ticket for Sprint 12. That sort of is the end of the end-to-end, really, the ability to download the PDF. And that's for the MVP launch. So we know that's just for a minimal viable product of the tool. We obviously want to move towards more dynamic data, and we need to do some planning around that, and again testing with users. But it will allow Senkos at the moment to attach the assessment to the current application process, and phase 2 will investigate how the assessment can become part of the whole process, improving everything end to end. David, who's been brought into the team in the last 2 sprints as an automated tester, started to automate test builds, and we can demo that in a minute. And we've started to refine for costs within the application. Again, a huge piece of work because it's quite a complex area. So actually, I'll come back to what's going to be done in the next sprints after we've done the demo. Okay, so I'll just do an end-to-end demo, and then I'll pass over to Prasanth, who's going to demo the download PDF. Okay, so when a user is logged in, which we've demoed in the previous open demo, you can start a new assessment or go to a current assessment. I'll go to a recent one because we've already demoed starting a new assessment. On the summary page, we've got a list of needs under the categories and also provisions, which are currently inactive until your highest level of need is chosen. If I click into a need category, you can select your level of need. Just revisiting that you can also clear the selection, which was done in a previous sprint and demo. And the ability to then save your assessment and have your highest level of need identified. There was also a bug in the last sprint, which was to correct the fact that sometimes if you went back and then you'd clear, I think it's if you, or can someone remind me? So if you,
I know that if you press save and then you press back, it would go back before it completed the save. So it wouldn't save anything. So you could kind of go, oh, save, and then press back. But so we disabled the back button until the save has been completed. So that's certainly one of the fixes.
Yeah, that was definitely, yeah, thank you. So if I press back, my highest level of need identified is level C. Now my provision has been activated, so I can go into the provision page. So this is a big bit of work recently to be able to identify and show these pages. And now the provisions that I'm being shown are the provisions related to that level only. So something we've come across is the fact that there is a lot of text that then can't wrap with this feature. So at the moment, we've got a tooltip showing the full provision if you hover over, but obviously we're going to need to revisit this in future sprints because it's not very accessible and it's not ideal. But we've identified that. But I can go and choose the provisions that meet the need for the child. And similar to the need statement, I can save it and it shows me the provision that I have identified. So if I click back, those are also listed. And I can continue through and do the same. So something else that we've identified recently is if I choose targeted and that's my highest level of need, it doesn't identify that and it doesn't save it. So I go back and you obviously can't you can't see that in a visual sense, but you will be able to see it on the PDF. But we've captured that as a backlog item, realizing that it would make much more sense for the targeted need to be shown, even if I can't go in and choose the provisions against it, because provisions can't be chosen against a targeted level. But just to show that's a backlog ticket. This is, so I'm in UAT at the moment. What will usually happen is because I've chosen at least a need and at least a provision, I should now be able to see a download PDF button, which now takes me to the ability to download the needs and provisions that I've selected. So I'm going to hand over to Vasant, if that's okay, Vasant.
Yeah, thanks, Ami. Yeah, absolutely fine. Shall I share my screen?
Yes, please.
Yeah. As we have one issue we need to sort out in the environment specific one. So we are working on it. So at the moment, we are going to show it in from my local machine on how this is working for download. So you're able to see my screen?
Yes, thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I'll take one of the assessment. So at the moment, no needs has been selected, so no provision also. So this is out. There's nothing to download as.
Was it your third or fourth one in your list that had?
Yeah. So I'm just going to create, just so that process will be here. Yeah. But now this is actually can see that there is some issue with my there is some issue with my networking.
I think you got a wife. Have you got a wife?
Let's see. Yeah. Yeah, so it came back. Now this has been, it's visible now because there is one need now. We can have a provision associated to this as well. So at the moment, I'm just, just downloading it. So this is called inline one. So the user has the facility to actually save it in, their local drive. So in this moment, it's not downloaded as such, but you can just download it. And you can see that the file name is the actual assessment number. So you can save it accordingly to that. So
I think it's the UPN number, I think, isn't it?
Yeah, that's the UPN number. Yes.
Yeah.
So you can come out. So I'll probably show one of the other assignment which has got more as needs and as provisions in it, so that it will be bigger data. So it has got more level of needs and provisions. So obviously download PDF is available. So if you look at it, it has got 2 pages of data. So the footer will come up with a page number in it. And then again, you can download it at this moment to your local drive. And you can open it from there as well. Yeah, so that's the quick demo. Is there anything to go through further, or?
I think that's it. I think it's probably just worth noting that at the moment, PDF is based on our sort of our core styling. So again, we need to sort of understand whether that's clear enough to users, and that's why the sooner we can get this beta version live, the sooner we can start getting real feedback, and Monica can start doing her one-to-one testing. Thank you, Vasanth.
Yeah, no, it's.
Yeah, thanks, Vasanth.
Yeah.
Yeah, so again, going back to another key delivery of the last 2 sprints has been the automated testing, which is going to help us massively, especially when we move this to shareable GitHub repository. So David's now, if you're fine with that, David, going to demo where we're at with the automated testing scripts.
Sorry, I need to take myself off mute. So I think I was sharing my screen. Hang on, let's have another go. Right, let me know when you can see IntelliJ.
Yeah, thank you.
We can.
Okay, great stuff. So as Amy said previously, I'm the automation tester for the project. And I'm trying initially to build an extensible framework so we can easily add functionality to it as we go along. And it's basically using Selenium WebDriver, which for those who don't know is a product or a piece of software that points and clicks and fires text at a web browser using the same kind of API that a user would do if they were actually clicking and using key presses themselves. So it pretends to be as human as possible, although obviously it's not, it's a machine. Right, so these are the tests that I have so far. I'm just firing it up now. And as Amy went through earlier, clicking and adding needs and provisions, these tests do pretty much the same thing, only for, what is it, communication interaction section and cognition and learning. These are the first 2 sections that I've automated just to get the framework up and running. So basically what you'll see is pages flying back and forth, and what's happening in the background, which I'll show you shortly, is a series of business readable testing scenarios that will add needs, add features, make sure that the features are then make sure that provisions are then brought back to the summary page, that they're listed correctly as they've been added. Again, you saw a little piece of the login screen there flying past. That's just to make sure that we are getting correct error messages. So what I've tried to do is just exercise as much of the website as possible in a shorter period of time, just to get a feel for what actually needs to be automated and what we can actually do with it. So these are the tests so far. As I said, they go flying along. I won't wait till the end of that. What I can do is show you the nice little test report that comes out of that. So here we have 3 features that have been created. We have 1 test failure. Now, I probably should say that this report can be customized, or we could improve reporting depending how we want to do things afterwards. But it's not a major deal to have to change this. It's configurable, and we can use a better piece of software for that if necessary. And this is an expected error. It's telling you that we've tried to add some needs and provisions. A user has done this particular provision. This is actually selecting a drop-down box. They've saved their provision. They've gone back to the summary screen, and the machine says, is the summary page what I was expecting it to be? And the test says, no, it wasn't. Actually, your test data was incorrect. Now, I was expecting this because I'd manually altered the user login details previously to add an additional case in there. So it's actually a correct failure. So that's good. It doesn't seem like a good thing, but it is a very good thing. The second feature that I've created, just to examine a little bit more, as I was saying, we've got validation for the front end, just for a user to log in. So UPN checks, school name checks. And what I'm trying to do is build a regression test pack as I go along. So I'm trying to tally the test cases that we've got in the automation pack against what Chris, our manual tester, has already written himself. So I'll put these little TC numbers because it seems the easiest way to correlate between automation and manual testing. And then the last feature that we have is communication interaction. And this is to do with adding needs and provisions. And again, I've got the test cases manually here, so you can reference them. Basically, this is adding a need and an associated provision, and then maybe changing the level of the provision. So what actually happens is the need gets, the provision gets removed when you change the need level. And you can also use the remove link to take it off manually, same way that Amy showed you earlier. And again here, need for a blank assessment. And as you can see, Cucumber style, it's all very much business readable language, so you can see clearly what each of the automation test cases is doing. You guys with me at the minute?
Yep, great, thank you.
Yep.
Okay, any questions, concerns, worries?
The only thing I would just say is that it is a very kind of readable report, but I think it's basically there for developers. It's there so that we'll run it, and if we get test failures, then we know we've done something to our code which has now broken it from the front end, without somebody having to sit there and actually go through and click buttons as Chris was having to do. So this is the it's primarily a developer's tool, I would see this as, and that's the way we always see these automated testing. But they save an enormous amount of time, because you could make a minor change to a little bit of code and then find that you've broken it from the front end, but not know until you pass it on and somebody says, oh, this is broken. That's the whole point of having these sorts of testing, just for anyone who doesn't know why we do these.
Well, I'd agree with you there, but I'd also say that these Cucumber style reports are designed to be read by anyone, developer or management. So a business reader can go in and see exactly what's there. This is the Cucumber style, but that would be built on top of the automation testing. So anyone can clearly see what these tests are doing, as opposed to JUnit tests, for example, or end-to-end integration tests. So it makes things nice and readable. Any more for any more?
Not for me, thank you.
Okay. Anyone else? Everyone happy? I'll stop sharing.
Great, thanks, David.
No worries.
I just realised, well, I'll go back and quickly finish demoing the remove functionality. So back on this summary page, I want to remove a provision, decided that it's not relevant or I've accidentally added it. At the moment, I'm getting, so as per our styling, browser specific check box. So are you sure you want to remove this provision? Obviously that will be not the UAT site, it will be the live site, which will be nice and user friendly. Click OK. And it's removed it. So now I've got 2. Just show it again. Now I've got 1. So that was it. That's a new feature for this demo. And that's all the features that we've gone through. Sorry, again, just we've removed the assessment ID, which was quite a long sequence of numbers along the top here. It's taking up quite a lot of space and it was not needed after we spoke to the actual users. So that's the features for sprints 11, 12.
Amy, does that now sort of represents pretty much the MVP, doesn't it? What we've now got, is that what this is what we're saying, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely.
It's to finish off, but we've basically done the main body of the work that we were going to do on this project.
Yeah, it's a really good point. So our aim was by February to sort of get our MVP beta 1 version live. We've just go through it in the next slide, but we're very nearly there. We've just got a few bits and bobs to do to get it into a production URL, but otherwise, yeah, that's end to end at the moment as a real basic MVP beta version. And I think the main point there, and so that's our first point, push UAT to a production URL. And the main point there is for the early adopter group we've identified with Alison to start using it in real life and providing feedback. Not on real assessments, probably, just what Alison will probably do is give them some sort of fake assessments to complete, just so that they can really start using it and understand, you know, what works, what doesn't work. Get Jude as well as a stakeholder to work with us to understand what is working, what isn't working, so that we can do that big planning session and put those tickets into the next however many sprints. And what Monica's finding is an issue at the moment in terms of the feedback sessions is SENCos have very, very limited time. And so things like those demos were good, but people don't tend to ask questions because it's too overwhelming for them. And the one-to-one sessions are difficult to schedule in, but also from an access point of view, we're trying to work through with IT at the moment. So that's kind of a focus as well, making sure that when this does go, does get released as the sort of go live version for everyone, people can access it easily. So also we need to go through the outstanding backlog tickets from phase 1. So we've got a few bugs in there, a few tweaks to do. We need to finish the automated testing. David's only with us for a set amount of time. He's obviously got to work through those and then hand over that knowledge as well to our internal team. We need to start to make the code shareable. From a GitHub point of view, we've got a bit of learning to do there. So there's going to be that time allocated to learning. Create the database for the cost as a feature. So similarly to the needs and provisions, the database side of that's going to be quite time consuming to understand and break down and sort of recreate in a usable way for our tool, understanding what provisions cost what, how that shows, what additional features we need that maybe don't meet the criteria at the moment. That's all got to be planned out in the next few weeks, and also a big planning session for phase 2. So moving from that kind of real MVP to starting to make it, give it more rich features and you know, understanding what additional features that we need.